It's a new dawn. It's a new day. It's a new life.
It's a new way to vacation. Welcome to the 4 parks of Universal Orlando Resort, including the all-new Universal Epic Universe. From the wizarding world of Harry Potter to Jurassic Park to spectacular themed hotels, we offer an entire week's worth of excitement. Vacations will never be the same. Visit universalorlando.com.
This is Let the Record Show, using common sense. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the chair of the Suffolk County Republican Party and the vice chair of the New York State Republican Party. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Later on in the show, joining us will be Dr. Waleed Ferris, a noted expert on foreign policy, commentator on various networks, advisor to the Romney and Trump presidential campaigns, a consultant to the Congress, and has testified in Congress. An expert on national security, foreign policy, the Middle East, a very learned gentleman, and we'll have him in the closing segment of this show. I want to begin, Jesse, with a debate that just happened last night, and that was between Senator Vance and Governor Walz. I'll give you my impressions, and I want to get your sense of it. The game has historically been vice presidential nominees don't count. Nobody votes for a president based on who the vice presidential nominee. Related to that concept is that debates between the vice presidential candidates don't count. I submit to you respectfully that's generally correct. This year may be an exception. How much of an exception, I don't know. And let me tell you why. With respect to Vance, there's a lot of negative campaigning going against him. The media was going after him. They want to make him out to be an extreme right-wing zealot, a harsh guy, unfeeling, uncaring, doesn't identify with the average person. In fact, the resume of this person, when I say he was born dirt poor, that's no exaggeration. His mother was drug addicted. They struggled. He went on to University of Pennsylvania for undergraduate and the Harvard Law School. Became a very distinguished writer. With the elegy book that he wrote, they even made a movie about it. I met him. I'm sure you've met him. I liked him enormously. I thought he was a lovely guy. My reservations about Senator Vance was I think he was a weaker pick than others that President Trump could have done. I think he could have gone with somebody a little bit older, more seasoned on the national stage, or more seasoned as an executive like Governor Youngkin or Governor Burkham or Senator Haggerty from Tennessee. But having said that, I will tell you that the JD Vance that I saw last night absolutely, positively knocked my socks off. He's smart. He's articulate. He was low-keyed. He was unflustered. He knew his stuff. He shows he cares about the people, shows he hasn't forgotten the humble origins from which he arose. So the Hillbilly Elegy, his book, tells the story of the American dream, the land of opportunity. And this is a man who's dedicated to creating opportunity and protecting his country. What he said last night was, I want to have equal opportunity for all, not equal results. What he said last night is, I want the border closed so we're not overwhelmed by illegal migrants who cause a threat to our personal safety and our economic viability. He understands the complicated issue of abortion, and he wants to do the right thing by giving a reasonable solution to the abortion issue. I thought he was just terrific. In contrast, you have Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, former member of Congress. Now, I'm not a big fan of him because I think he just puts on this aw shucks, father knows best, Midwestern persona, but I think he's a shrewd political operative. I don't think he's a particularly good debater. I don't think he's particularly knowledgeable. I don't like his entanglements with the Red Chinese Communist Party or the government. I don't like the fact that he allowed rioting to go on for days in Minneapolis and slowed down the National Guard. I don't like the fact that he says that socialists are just like our neighbors. And I think last night he showed himself to be a very limited person. And what scares me, Jesse, that limited person, if elected vice president, is one heartbeat away to the presidency. And I saw no strength of character there. I saw no strength of intellect there. I saw no strength of fortitude with this man. Was he a nice guy? Yeah, he came across as a nice guy. But is he somebody you really want to protect the free world in the United States? I don't think so. Jesse, my thoughts, your turn.
Thank you. And as people are listening to this, I know that the members of our Jewish friends will be celebrating Rosh Hashanah, and I want to wish them, and I hope that they had a wonderful new year. I couldn't agree with you more on those issues. And I have to tell you, you pointed this out, Your Honor. The vice president is one heartbeat away from the presidency. And on Wednesday night, only one candidate appeared presidential and ready for the job.
Tuesday night.
Tuesday night. I'm sorry. Tuesday night. And that was Senator Vance. And throughout the debate, Senator Vance was poised while his Democrat socialist governor, Tim Walz's opponent, was shifty, unprepared, and certainly uncomfortable. So much so that once again, the mainstream media moderators had to interject themselves repeatedly to try and save Walz and also double down and try and embarrass Senator Vance, who I think he handled them masterfully. Senator Vance clearly articulated the vision he and President Donald Trump have for America. He identified the problem we have as nations that we face and outlined a plan of action to make America great again. Tim Walz, however, came off, as you said, stiff, scripted, and as his running mate has been Kamala Harris, using the same tired old talking points and verbosity instead of vision. You know, Tim Walz again proved that putting Kamala Harris and himself into office would be a giant step backwards that our nation can't afford, Your Honor. I think that America was first introduced to JD Vance, and it was an introduction at their national convention, and it allowed the big stream media, big tech, to create a narrative around him that he's anti this, anti that, that he's anti what our beliefs are. Last night, more than 50 million Americans tuned into that debate. And I agree with you. Typically, the vice president is not an issue in this race. But because of what we're facing as a nation and what we've seen with two assassination attempts upon President Donald Trump, and certainly the mental diminution of President Biden over the last 4 years, even though that the American people were lied to about this, the vice president is important.
Yeah, let me point out to you, Jesse, I was at an event the other day, and the speaker, and I haven't verified this, so the numbers may be a little off, that of the 45 U.S. presidents, 15 vice presidents succeeded to the office of the presidency. This is serious business.
It is serious business. You're correct. But I think that JD Vance distinguished himself. And you know what? With a clear lens, the American people got to see who JD Vance is, what he stands for, and that he is one of us. His upbringing, he never was given a silver spoon, he wasn't born into a silver spoon in his mouth. He had to raise himself up from the bootstraps. Went to the Army, served in the military, paid his way through college and through law school, and became a senator. And he is someone that has spoken truth to power. When he disagreed with candidate or in 2016, he spoke up. When he worked with Donald Trump and he saw what the policies through action were, he understood, like many Americans have understood, that, you know what, maybe it's okay to have a mean tweet as long as our gas prices are low, our grocery prices are low, our pocketbooks and our salaries are going up. And you know what, that there are no new wars going on, proliferating across the globe. We can't say that to be the case in the last 4 years of the Harris-Biden administration. Our paychecks have shrunken, but we've seen hikes in gas, groceries, and everyday purchases that the American family's got to deal with. This was a big night for Senator Vance. It was a big night for the Trump-Vance team. And dare I say, and I hope and I pray that it was a big night for the future of America, because I think those that were on the bubble or straddling the fence which way they're going to go, that block of independent, unaffiliated voters that has not yet decided how they're going to go in this election, that the final word what they received was articulated perfectly by Senator Vance. And now just speaking one more thing, Your Honor, because one way or the other, I do think that this was a debate that also puts out a stakeholder's position for 2028. But I get ahead of myself. I'm a political leader that says we run one election at a time. I think Senator Vance did great service to America by articulating the Trump-Vance vision. He also exposed what the Harris, Waltz, Obama, Biden debacle has been over the last 12 and the last 16 years, and that there is a clear difference for voters to make. We could have prosperity and liberty with Trump and Vance, or we could have censorship, inflation, a world at war under Biden, Harris, and Waltz.
Well, I think that's well said, Jesse. I'll tell you, I looked at Tim Walz, and I said to myself, is this guy running for vice presidency of Minnesota? And all his references were back to Minnesota. And what he forgot to say about Minnesota is that tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people are fleeing Minnesota because the economy is crashing, because the invasion of illegal migrants with crime and social dependency. Quality of life is down. Public safety is diminished incredibly. And there's no record to run on. And yet he keeps going back to Minneapolis and to Minnesota. Well, that's swell. You have good medical care there. That's not on you or because of you, Governor Walz. That's because you have the Mayo Clinic there. I mean, what does he have to do with running the Mayo Clinic? I mean, the whole thing. I mean, he throws some money from the state budget to Mayo Clinic. Swell. The Mayo Clinic existed, one of the great medical institutions of this country, long before Tim Walz, and it will be there long after he goes into the dustpan of history as some footnote that he was and also ran for the vice presidency of the United States and a one-time governor of Minnesota. You know, he'll be known, I hope, as the Harold Stassen. And for those people not old enough to remember Harold Stassen, he was a boy wonder, mayor of Minneapolis, and then governor of Minnesota. And everybody said he was the next president of the United States. And he wound up becoming a political joke and kept running for office, and kept getting defeated. So finally, you maybe had a dozen people in the whole country who took him seriously. And I don't know who those dozen were. That's why I see Tim Walz being, because Tim Walz is not the real deal. What he stands for is dangerous for the future of this country. JD Vance, in contrast, stands for energy independence, spending that makes sense and is not inflationary, no obsession with the secular religion of the Green New Deal, the AOC nonsense, somebody who will stand up against anti-Semitism and stand with the state of Israel in the fight for Western civilization. This is a man that you can count on. He's level-headed, he's calm, and he comes off as the real deal. What Walz comes off as is somebody who's memorized talking points and has to look down and make notes of what his talking points were, because it's a democracy. And I say to you, Jesse, one of the great frauds on the American people is when the Democratic Party and their candidates talk about democracy, because they're the ones who've attacked it. They're the ones who've attacked President Trump through false allegations and lawfare, trying to bankrupt him, arrest him, keep him off ballots. They're the ones who try to censor him, locked up the big tech, locked up the media. They're the ones who, when they do debates, pick networks that are in the tank for them. I mean, your thought was a very good one. Look at what those moderators did last night. They interrupted when they were not supposed to. They cut off the mic when they had no right to do that. They challenged so-called facts when they had their facts wrong, and they wouldn't give Vance an opportunity to clean up their errors. the hostility there was immense. With O'Donnell, it was a little bit more subtle. With Brennan, to me, was stark. What are your final thoughts for this segment?
My final thoughts, and I want to ask you this question because about the moderators. I think we all understand that prices have gone up. Gas, for every product has gone up for the American middle-class family, correct? How is it that an entire 90 minutes goes by? We can talk about abortion, and that was cleared up. We can talk about J6 and such. How do we not talk about energy in this debate? When rising energy costs as a result of the United States not being energy independent at the direct hands of Hayden, right?
Hayden, they are. That's a good Freudian slip. They are hiding. That's correct.
Harris and Biden, they are. Harris and Biden, where they basically have shut down domestic energy production and independence. Senator Vance is right. That fuel leads to the increase of all products. If you want to build a house, lumber goes up because truckers have to pay 40% higher in fuel costs. That means whatever they're carrying, perishables, food, materials, school supplies, whatever they carry, lumber, the costs go up on that. How do we have these two learned and educated moderators not bring up a question about energy? And that's where Senator Vance was deft at bringing it forward to the American people. He tacked back to the important issues despite their bias, and that's what it was. Despite their bias and their thumb on the scale to make Waltz look good because the Harris team was concerned about his preparedness and his ability. They were trying to lower the bar as much as possible, and even then he snuck underneath it, playing underneath this very low bar. Excuse me. But Senator Vance brought it back to the basic issues of pocketbook matters like costs, inflation, energy, immigration, the cost of everything. Everything that he brought up, no matter what, came back to increased costs on the American families.
Absolutely. Well, this is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Please stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment with more important and interesting discussion.
Let the Record Show is on the air.
In golf, precision is everything, on and off the course. PGA of America chose advanced 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business for smooth operations and seamless transactions. Together, we enhance ticketing and concessions for better fan experiences from gate to green. This is pro-level efficiency. This is PGA of America with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel or that white chocolate mocha. Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
Shopping is hard, right? But I found a better way. Stitch Fix online personal styling makes it easy. I just give my stylist my size, style, and budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want. No subscription required. And he sends just for me pieces, plus outfit recommendations and styling tips. I keep what works and send back the rest. It's so easy. Make style easy. Get started today at StitchFix.com/Spotify. That's StitchFix.com/Spotify.
Parents of tweens, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
This is Let the Record Show. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. With me is Jesse Garcia, the vice chair of the state Republican Party, and the county chair of the Suffolk Party. Jesse, I had the occasion on Monday morning to have breakfast with Senator Thune of South Dakota, who's one of the leaders of the United States Senate in the Republican Party, as well as Bernie Moreno, who's the United States Senate candidate for the Republicans in Ohio, in a very close race there. And I have to tell you, the topics were very, very interesting, and I just want to share this with you and get your thoughts. One of the things that came up was the Democrats' plan to destroy the filibuster in the Senate and how important that is as to avoid the tyranny of the majority and destruction of American values and institutions. That was one of the things we talked about. Another thing we talked about was Harris at the border. Too little, too late. She's pretending that she did a job, or she's trying to do a job, or it's all the Republicans' fault for not passing a piece of legislation which was fundamentally a consumer fraud, even though they keep forgetting there was over 70 executive orders that maintained the integrity of the border and protected us that were rescinded on the first day of the Biden-Harris administration. So that was another issue we talked about. The other issue that we talked about was, and we'll get to this when we have Dr. Ferris in our final segment, is we were talking about what's going on in the Middle East, the threat to Israel and to Western civilization. And then we talked about the Harris economic plans, which were fundamentally, Jesse, more taxes, more government regulations, more reckless inflationary spending, more political payoffs to allies of the far left, more shameless buying of votes, more state control of the economy, less free choice and economic opportunity for the American people. So it was a far-ranging discussion, and I walked away saying, my God, if we could only get these decent people elected to control and be the majority of the United States Senate, I could sleep better. I would know there are checks and balances still existing as envisioned by our founding fathers in our Constitution. Now, what are your thoughts on the issues I've just raised?
Well, I mean, I think Senator Thune is one of those bright stars and rising stars in the Republican Party because he's first grounded in public service and love of country. I think he's absolutely right. Number one, the founding fathers, in all their wisdom, had always wanted to make sure that we protected the minority. Having lived in a monarchy and with a king that would always have, in a caste system, our founding fathers wanted to make sure that the minority always had a voice. That's why the upper chamber, the Senate, was given this tool of the filibuster to stop runaway rogue governments. It stopped the extreme of any political ideology if they ever captured all three, the two chambers of Congress and the presidency, from ramrodding and changing the institutions of our government. I believe that Senator Schumer has made it very clear that it does not matter. The Constitution doesn't matter. The constitutional republic does not matter. The American future and ideology and traditions do not matter. The only thing that matters to Democrats like Chuck Schumer and those on the ticket this year and in most years is greed, power, influence, and the control of the lives of Americans so they can reshape America into what we had a revolutionary war and fought successfully to be free ourselves from a tyranny of a monarch or one level of government in such one-party rule of government. We need the filibuster. I believe it's there to protect the minority voices or ideas, whether it's Republican or Democrat, because like any political cycle, you're going to see the pendulum go back and forth, and we need to make sure America remains grounded in its Constitution and its rules and law. What's scary is if the Harris-Walz team gets elected. Now, let's talk about taxes here for a minute, because fundamentally, that is the most important issue right now. We have seen taxes raise here in New York. High tax Hochul has done this at the state level. Now, with her unfunded mandates on lower levels of government, whether you're a county or a town, say you've witnessed unrelenting rising pension costs. You've seen, rising healthcare costs. She has placed mandates and regulations on the resource recovery of waste management. Yet provides no funding. Again, her debacle when it comes to cannabis and making cannabis illegal now is forcing localities like the county of Suffolk and others to have to enforce illegal cannabis shops that are popping up all over the place. These unfunded mandates. These are what Democrats do. So first they attack you by raising your taxes and spending money wrongly, like high tax Hochul has. Then you have Harris, who's just as bad, who's going to move forward with a tax plan that first and foremost eliminates the Trump tax cuts that will sunset. She said she wants to get rid of them. That's an immediate tax increase.
If they did nothing else, that will raise costs, the tax costs to everybody.
And does that have to be tweaked a bit? Does the Trump tax cuts have to be tweaked a little bit to take into account SALT that, that members of Congress like, Anthony D'Esposito of Nassau, Nick LaLota of Suffolk, and Andrew Garbarino of Suffolk, and Mike Lawler have been fighting for? Yes, we can tweak it, but we need to keep them in place so we can get that SALT deduction, which is state and local taxes, to be deducted from our income tax at the federal level. We need that there. But to increase the corporate tax from 21% to 28%, those monies are going to be two things are going to happen with that. That tax increase is going to be passed on in part to the consumer. What's even worse, Your Honor, and tell me if I'm wrong, that tax increase is going to result in the loss of existing jobs and future job creation by small businesses. Because right now, that corporate structure, people are at S corps, people have created LLCs to create their small businesses. They're going to be impacted by this. And then one of the biggest issues we have is we're required under Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to pay unrealized capital gains. So if I purchase a condo for my son purchased a condo because he's coming out of college, right? If that condo goes up in value, yet he hasn't sold it, he has to pay the taxes on capital gains that have not been realized yet. So he may have to borrow or default for something he has not yet received. This tax plan, what the Democrats are trying to do with their socialistic progressive agenda, reminds me of two quotes from the great President Ronald Reagan, one of my heroes, when he said, for Democrats, it's if it moves, they tax it. If it keeps moving, they regulate it. And then if it stops moving, they take our tax dollars and they subsidize it. Sounds almost like taking $2.4 billion like Kathy Hochul did for illegal immigration here in the state of New York. And then, of course, I do believe this with all sincerity, that Democrats look at every day as April 15th and Republicans look at it every day as the 4th of July.
Well, this is my problem with the economic plans. It's the same old, same old. This is a woman who wants to be president of the United States and says she's the agent of change. She's giving us this hopey, changey thing that Obama sold the American people on with a bill of goods. Pure nonsense, which made us a much weaker country, a much more vulnerable country, undermined our national security, and put us on the cusp of a nuclear Iran. That's what you get with this hopey, changey stuff. Divided the country by race, by gender.
She has.
That's what Obama did, and Biden-Harris continued that identity politics nonsense. So what do you say about these people? You have to say, how are we going to live in a country that you recognize? How do we get back to the basics about what this country is? This country is a land of opportunity. This is a land of free choice. This is not social planning by the state. This is the ability to go into the marketplace and make your own way in this world, given equality of opportunity, not mandated results. When they pick and choose winners in the economy, Jesse, mostly they're wrong. The government does not a good job of picking winners and losers in the economy. You go back to what
they do not.
You go back to the secular religion of the Green New Deal and getting rid of fossil fuels, absolutely, and destroying that, making everybody get electric cars, mandating that you get an electric car even though nobody wants them, or only a fraction of people want it. You want it, buy it. You want it, lease it. But don't tell me I can't have a gas-powered car. And it makes no difference, Jesse, what we do in the United States, because India and China, amongst others, do whatever they want with energy, and it's dirty energy. Our energy is the cleanest in the world. And then when we dismantle our ability to produce energy and have energy independence, we make ourselves vulnerable to our enemies. The billions of dollars that went to Iran, whether it's sanction relief by Obama and Biden, or tons of money that was given out by Biden and Obama, that subsidized the terrorism that was facing now and
absolutely
raised the cost. And all that money then fed, the Russian aggression against the Ukraine, Iran's aggression against the Middle East. This is serious stuff. These people have to wake up. She's the agent of change. What change? She was in there for more than 3.5 years. She's supposed to be the last person in the room counseling the President of the United States as the Vice President. And what has she ever done? Which leads me to my final point, is Harris at the border. She goes to the border and she did a 10-minute op again. Another photo op. She's the queen of photo ops. She is a fraud. She did nothing to protect us against the 15 million illegals that came bouncing across. The violation of the constitutional obligations and the statutory obligations of the Biden-Harris administration to protect and defend our border. What absolute nonsense. Your thoughts before we have to take the break and bring on Dr. Ferris.
Kamala Harris is directly responsible for those 15 million illegal immigrants that have crossed this border illegally. She is directly responsible for the 500,000 that her own Department of her own border patrol has identified as having criminal records, murder records in their home nations. They're unchecked, they're unvetted. We have a gun problem. If people who think that we have a gun problem here, the Second Amendment's not the gun problem. What's the problem is are the illegal guns from the cartels that are traveling over the border because of the ineptness and the negligence of Kamala Harris and her administration. As you said, and as Senator Vance said, any of the changes that she wanted to do on day one were about 700 days ago that she could have undertaken them, but she can simply just do it today. She can do it tomorrow. She can do it at any moment. She won't because there is no substance. With them, it's only about a quid pro quo. It's about gaining power, maintaining their influence on the levers of government here in the White House. And now, if I could ask you one quick question. I know we have to do a hard break because we have a distinguished guest joining us, who's not Eric Levine.
We have a lot of other distinguished guests, but yes, Eric is at the top of our list, correct.
But when speaking to Senator Thune, who is in the mix to become the successor to Senator Mitch McConnell right, as the leader of the Republican caucus, how did he forecast the Senate independently is going to come out following these November elections? I know that Mike Saperconi here in New York is pounding away at Gillibrand. We're going to try and put this thing in play for him. But what was his message about where he believes the Republicans will be in that chamber come November 5th?
He believes that the Senate will be, the majority control will be with the Republicans. How many seats they pick up, we don't know yet because a lot of these seats are in the margin of error. The biggest chances of winning are in Montana with Sheehy and in West Virginia with Governor Justice. So those two are looking very, very strong. But they have very strong candidates in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Ohio, Michigan, Nevada. They have real chances to do that. There are about a half a dozen or 7 other places that really are races within the margin of error. So hopefully, and I'm hopeful, that you'll have more than a 51-49 victory for the Republicans. I would hope that you'd be closer to 50, at least 54. But Senator Thune is not making absolute predictions, but he does believe that we have 6 or 7 races out there that within the margin of error that Republicans could prevail. And they have very high quality candidates this year, and I hope they do, because the balance of power, the checks and balances against a radical progressive administration is in the hands of the Senate. And I don't want to close the segment without saying it's also important that the United States House of Representatives stays in the hands of the Republican, because all the spending bills originate in the House. You have common sense people, particularly in the state of New York, people who really deserve either election or re-election to the House, the Republicans. As you pointed out, you have wonderful people out on the island. You have Lolota, you have Garbarino, you have D'Esposito, you have Esposito upstate, you have Williams, upstate, you have Mike Lawler. You have a whole bunch of people who deserve to be elected or reelected because they're a bulwark against the radical progressive ideology that's taken over, and particularly in the House. This is Let the Record Show.
About that, I know we got to go, but to our listeners, because we're going to get into with our guests about the Middle East conflicts right now. Remember and ask yourself these questions about Tim Walz of the Harris-Walz team. He should have clarified what he meant when he said he befriended school shooters. I don't get that. And he should come clean when he told everyone that he was at Tiananmen Square when he was actually in Hong Kong, or he was in the China region, and he wasn't. He was in Nebraska.
How about that he was actually in combat? He was a combat leader, and he had already resigned.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, that's a third one.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, the famous line they said about Hillary Clinton applies equally to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, is each of them has a distant relationship to the truth. This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Stay with us for our final segment. We'll be joined by Dr. Walid Phares, a noted foreign policy, national security expert and expert on the Middle East. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This is Let the Record Show.
We off? 30 seconds of carefree bliss.
Oof, like wind in your hair carefree.
Oh, like using Clorox disinfecting all-purpose cleaner in the home carefree.
Yes.
Like dog slobbing on the coffee table and cleaning it with Clorox carefree.
He's on a roll now.
Spit toothpaste on the faucet.
You got it. You got it.
Peanut butter on the light switch.
Oh, spritz, spritz.
Spritz, spritz. Clorox, man. Clean feels good.
Okay, we're back.
Use as directed.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Not everyone is careful with your personal information, which might explain why there's a victim of identity theft every 5 seconds in the U.S. Fortunately, there's LifeLock. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats to your identity. If your identity is stolen, a U.S.-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year by visiting lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
Hey, let's talk about your expense report.
I didn't submit an expense report.
You will. Custom saddles and dog training services are not within policy.
What are you talking about?
SAP Concur uses advanced AI to audit and automatically detect out-of-policy expenses. It's the breakthrough I needed to focus more on our future.
These are my future expenses?
Yes, and self-defense classes are out of policy.
I'll need self-defense classes?
You will.
For what?
It's a big dog.
SAP Concur helps your business move forward faster. Learn more at concur.com.
This is Let the Record Show. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. With me is Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the county chair of the Suffolk County Republican Party and the vice chair of the New York State Republican Party. We're trying to get Dr. Walid Phares on the show with us, but there's an emergency that came up in terms of events that are going on in the Middle East. So Dr. Phares just phoned in, indicated he can't do it today, but we've agreed that we're going to have Dr. Phares on Let the Record Show with Jesse and myself next week. So Jesse and I will pick up from where we left off. Jesse.
So does this mean do we move Dr. Phares into not a special guest until he shows up next week? You know, I mean, does he get penalized? Is it do we do
I know. I think he's such a. I don't know. I think he's entitled to one excuse.
He's got a pretty good excuse, I guess.
No, crisis in the Middle East.
To our listeners, he is worth waiting for. So I mean,
Well, the thing about Dr. Ferris, I've been watching him for years on television. He's a commentator on Fox and other networks. He's a consultant to the U.S. Congress. He's testified in Congress. He was a lead advisor on foreign policy and national security to Governor Romney when he ran for president and President Trump when he ran for president. So we're going to bring him back. So now Jesse and I will talk about what's going on in the Middle East. So, Jesse, let me begin this by saying Hezbollah. What is Hezbollah? Hezbollah is a terrorist group so designated by the United Nations and the European Union and countries all across the world. What did Hezbollah do? October 7th, Hamas attacks Israel, kills, 1,200, 1,400 people, rapes, tortures, beheads, puts babies in ovens, brings back as hostages, a couple of 100, 250 people, most of whom are now dead, tortured to death or starved to death or executed summarily by the Hamas savages. So on October 8th, the only reasonable thing to do if you're a wonderful, peace-loving human being like Hezbollah is you go out there and you start launching thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of military strikes, missile, rocket attacks against northern portion of Israel, where some 60 to 80 to 100,000 people had to flee for their lives. And in essence, it made that portion of the territory of Israel, a sovereign, legitimate country created by the United Nations, lose a substantial portion of its population in that territory. They had to evacuate. And so what went on for almost a year was they were shooting back and forth at each other. Hezbollah would shoot, Israel would respond. Remember, it's all started by Hezbollah in support of Hamas, and said they wouldn't stop shooting at Israel until there was a ceasefire with Hamas, and Hamas would then be rewarded for their act of terrorism against the state of Israel and their savagery. So finally, the Israelis wake up and they say, you know what, enough of this nonsense. We're going to start taking out their leaders. And that's what they did. Up the chain until they finally got rid of Nasrallah. Nasrallah, the terror chieftain responsible for the bombing of the Beirut embassy, the Beirut Marine barracks, all kinds of devices in Iraq and Syria, in the Middle East, supporter of Assad, the terrorist who killed hundreds of thousands of people, of his own people. Nasrallah, who's responsible for the civil war in Lebanon, a country that was established to be a Christian country, but shared responsibilities with a Muslim community. Islamic fundamentalists, people who want hegemony over the world, a death cult, and they go to civil war against the state of Lebanon, and they drive out most of the Christians and the Jews and any other religions. That's Hezbollah. So Israel finally goes after them, takes out Nasrallah, and what happens? Everybody wakes up to say, how come the United States of America, who lost all those folks, the hundreds of people in Lebanon, how come they didn't take out this scum of the earth, Nasrallah? Why didn't they do what was necessary? Because Iran fights their war, as cowards they are, by using other people's armies and other people's civilian hostages. The people of Lebanon are hostages to Hezbollah. The people of Gaza are hostages to Hamas. The people in Yemen are hostages to the Houthis. Who are they all funded by, given arms by, given technical training by? Iran. Iran is the head of the whole regime of terror in the Middle East. This regime of terror created and funded by Barack Obama, continued by the Biden-Harris administration. It's a disgrace. And so they did the right thing. And now, guess who's annoyed? Iran says, you shouldn't have done that. We're going to retaliate, and it sent out 181 missiles against Israel. And Israel said, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. So what happens? Israel says it's going to respond. They'll pick the time and place that they're choosing, but you can believe that Israel will respond. Because unlike the brainless, gutless Biden-Harris administration, they will do the right thing. They will protect the people of Israel. the peace-loving people in the Arab countries. By the way, there was cheering in the streets, not only in the Christian communities that are left in the Middle East, but Arab people who were savagely brutalized by the Shiite regime. So, what do we have? We have Biden today announces, Israel, don't go after Iran. It's not a good idea. Don't go after their nuclear facilities. It makes your eyes bleed, Jesse, and your head explode. The pure stupidity, the moral indifference of the Biden-Harris administration. What do you say?
I think you're absolutely correct. I think what we have demonstrated is, and we have said this on many occasions, Israel is fighting the war that America doesn't want to fight. However, if they're going to be doing that and spilling the blood of their sons and their daughters, America and the American leadership should be standing there shoulder to shoulder. Right now, we see Israel fighting Iran proxies on multiple fronts, on 4 fronts. What I found impressive is the fact that the Iron Dome, which helped with the assistance of the United States in its creation, was able to intercept about 99% of the missiles of the 180 to 200, depending on what the IDF identifies, that were fired at them. And it demonstrates the ability for the United States and Israel to defend itself. In part of that, 2 U.S. destroyers fired and intercepted missiles, and the British also assisted.
And the Jordanians as well, and the French.
And the Jordanians as well. What I find is that when you punch the bully, the park bully in the mouth, and everyone sees them to be what they are, nothing more than a blowhard coward, it makes for a safer park. The same could be said on the global community. What the Ukrainians have demonstrated with Russia, just to divert for a minute, is that the Iron Bear, despite the fact that they have all these nuclear weapons, when confronted on an even playing field, they have been set back. In fact, they have needed the assistance of countries like China and Iran to fortify their resources, their military resources, like through drones from Iran, and missiles to fight that war. Israel has done the same to Iran. It is amazing that it was the Iranian government and the clergy said there that after about 99% of their missiles were intercepted, and some fell, in a small portion of them in the city center, and on the south, that there will be that Israel should not move forward with any more counterattacks because it'll be disastrous for them. I think we're seeing the best of Iran, and we have taken that on. Now, listen, I'm not someone that encourages war, who wants to see war, but I do know that if you don't punch that bully in the mouth, he's going to keep terrorizing you for years to come, and that's what Iran has been doing. It has been using proxies to terrorize American servicemen, American interests, American resources in the region, and other allies in the area. This is an act, and again,
that's such a good. By the way, that's such a good Freudian slip. I love it.
It really is because
they're all hiding. They're all hiding
from hiding and from behind. They're leading from behind. We have seen through I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I'm not the most learned person in the world, and Dr. Farris will be able to be more articulate about this. But one thing I can put is I can look at history, that every time the United States or any global power has opted for appeasement, war followed, and tyranny was on the doorstep. That's what we have here. Harris and Biden and their acts of appeasement when it comes to Iran and its proxies are leading us down the path of a war. We did not have, and listen, you may not like his tweets, you may not like the way he speaks, you may think he comes off as a thug, but President Trump demonstrated and he put forward American strength. He obliterated ISIS. There were no new wars begun, and in fact, terrorism was shrinking, and peace was coming through the Abraham Accords into the Middle East.
Well,
unfortunately, only strength is what these leaders of these countries will respond to.
Jesse, I agree with you. That's the lesson of history. It's particularly the lesson of the Middle East, where they're always interested in who the stronger horse is, the weak horse versus the stronger horse. They always follow the stronger horse. Every time you say, don't retaliate, appease, because otherwise you'll have escalation, what you have is you encourage more escalation. They keep pushing the button, pushing the red lines, doing whatever they can. Every step of the way, there's been more acts against Western civilization, against our allies, because they've tried to slow down Israel's response. If they had let Israel go in quickly into Gaza, they would have saved a lot more hostages, a lot more people, both on the Israeli side and on the Palestinian side, would have their lives saved. The longer you drag out the war, the more people will die. You don't have to be a nuclear scientist to figure that one out. That's the truth. You don't have to be a mathematician. The longer war goes on, the more people will die. The shorter and more decisive it is, quickly, the less people will die. But the matter is simple, and the matter was brilliantly stated by Gerard Baker in the Wall Street Journal, in Monday or Tuesday's Wall Street Journal. And he said, as you and I and Eric Levine have talked about, this is a fight for Western civilization. And what Gerard Baker said, which is true, he said, never, and this is phrasing and paraphrasing from Winston Churchill, when he's talking about the great brave men of the Royal Air Force. And this is what Churchill said. He said, never have so many owed so much to so few. Never have so many owed so much to so few. That's Churchill, not Weinberg. And I'm telling you, Gerard Baker made it very, very clear, Israel is on the forefront of Western civilization. If Israel goes down, Western civilization is lost. It encourages Iran to gobble up the entire Middle East. That will mean they will control the waterways. It will marginalize the so-called Arab moderate states. It will impact on world trade. It will impact on the flow of oil. This is serious business. They will control that, and that will, since they're members of the axis of evil, which is China, North Korea, Russia, Venezuela, they will act to the detriment of the Western democracies and the United States of America. Gerard Baker had exactly right. This is not just Israel's fight. People should stop saying it's Israel's fight. Israel is the first one up, and they have to win. And as you correctly point out, you got to punch the bully in the mouth or the nose. As a kid growing up in Brooklyn, I was taught it was the nose, but you may be right. It might be the mouth. And the way I punch, I'd probably hit the ear. I don't know. But and I probably hit my own ear. But the fact of the matter is, Jesse, these are serious questions, and weakness begets aggression. Now, everybody's afraid of what Iran's response will be if Israel retaliates. Well, that depends, I guess, on what Israel does. Israel could go directly against the nuclear facilities, but they'll probably need help from the Biden administration, who are gutless and have already indicated they don't want to do that. Or Israel could go after their oil refineries or oil facilities or their ports. Israel could try to go after the Ayatollah directly. It could go after more leaders of the Revolutionary Guard, which is dictatorship over the Iranian people. It is not without devices and approaches. How they choose to do that, as Senator Vance correctly pointed out last night in the debate, whatever Israel decides, the United States should have their back and back them. And the other thing I want to point out to you, and you've pointed out before, when you fight a war, you have to fight to win. If you don't fight to win, then you're not fighting to live. The Israelis understand this. They live in a rough neighborhood. You need to back their play. Vance said very, very clearly, it's not for us to tell them what to do or what not to do. It's us to back them. And it's not enough to play a defensive game to win this war against Islamic fundamentalist terrorists and Iran. You have to have offensive actions. Your thought?
Absolutely. And I do think that we need, for peace, through strength, we need to push back Iran. And if that means removing, if they possibly can, their nuclear capabilities, then we should. If it means addressing and curtailing their economy so that they can't fund these proxies, that means we go after their oil refineries. And it's not just in the American interest. There are a whole host of Middle Eastern countries there that are quietly in support of what Israel's doing and that have been urging America to finally strike a blow for liberty and freedom and peace in the Middle East by going after Iran and not letting it be the rogue terrorist state that it is that has been placing all of their communities, all their neighborhoods, and their nations in danger. We cannot let the Middle East fall into the grasp of two entities, actually three, because there is a partnership and an axis of evil there growing: Iran, China, and Russia. And the Harris-Biden administration has not only allowed that to happen, its ineptness and negligence and wrong-mindedness on foreign policies has actually exacerbated that situation.
So, listen, all blame goes first and foremost to Barack Obama.
Yes, with the Iran deal.
The Iran deal. He goes on an apology tour, then he enables Iran, then he gives them hundreds of millions of dollars and billions and billions of dollars. And what do they do with that? They support all these armed terrorist groups, train them, give them weaponry, give them expert counseling on how to use these armaments, let them loose to destabilize the Middle East. And if you want to do something right away, United States of America, because you're afraid of confronting Iran, let Israel do it. Get out of the way. And if you want to do something to really show them a lesson, take out the next bunch of savages, allies, their proxies, blow out the Houthis in Yemen, free open our air, strike that, free open our oceans, free open the seas, free open international trade, take out the Houthis. If that won't be a message to Iran that you're next, if you want to do this incrementally, to do that. But my view, and I'm not a general and I don't play one on television or radio, it seems to me you should go after Iran when they're weak, when the getting is good. Jesse, I got the hook here. That means you too. This has been Let the Record Show. I want to thank you, Jesse, for another great show. This has been Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. We look forward to being back with you next week. God bless you. God bless America. And God love peace-loving people who defend democracy all across the world. Thank you for listening.
This is Let the Record Show.